Emily says her child will choose their gender at 18. Claims she's been traumatized by white men. All right. Well, if you don't know who Emily is here, she is a B-list actress and I believe, an Instagram model. I think she makes most of her money off of modeling, not acting. But first, I want to let you know that if you like my content, don't forget to subscribe. I make videos mostly about the low expectation bigotry that exists in the Western world, about how men are evil and women are good, and challenging those notions. Also challenging the notions that white people are inherently evil. That's what I usually focus on. Sometimes I make videos on other things, anything really that will catch my fancy, but I'm always challenging notions of things that just make no sense to me. So let's get into the article here. So this Emily, I'm just going to call her Emily because I can't pronounce her last name because it's not written in a language that is pronounceable. Uh, she is going to have a child, and she's going to abuse that child by not assigning gender pronouns to that child, which I don't know how you're going to be able to talk about it, the kid, without using proper gender pronouns, or introduce the child to the world without using proper gender pronouns. Letting the child do that at age 18. And then she's claimed she's been traumatized by white men. That must mean that the baby is not going to be white. So let's see. She must be having a baby with a non-white man. Let's take a look. Oh, oh yeah. So this is her spouse. I guess that she didn't get the message that if you are white and you have a child with a white person, your child will be white. I don't know what to tell her. And then she's wrong. So she was in Gone Girl. She played the mistress to Ben Affleck's character. So you can see her fully nude in that movie if you're so inclined. She is a very attractive woman. She recently claimed she will allow her child to choose their gender at age 18. But not only did she discuss that her child will choose their own gender, she also claims that she's been traumatized by white men. You know, white men, they have a monopoly on traumatizing women. Did you know that? That was what we decided at our last white men only meeting underneath the burned out volcano. It was a good meeting. And so we decided that, yeah, we're going to have a monopoly on traumatizing white women, and that no other race or gender is allowed to traumatize women, especially white women. So you know, I wanted to let you know that that's what happened, in case you missed the meeting. So Emily, comments were made public when she penned the article for Vogue discussing her pregnancy. All right, so she did an article for Vogue discussing her pregnancy. She wrote, "When my husband and I tell friends that I'm pregnant, the first question after congratulations is almost always, 'Do you know what you want?' We like to respond that we won't know the gender until our child is 18, and that they'll let us know then." You realize that that's not an answer really to this question. What you want and allowing the child to choose its own gender when it's legally an adult in the United States is not the same thing. Alright, so the actress continued. "There is truth to our line, though, one that hints at possibilities that are much more complex than whatever genitalia our child might be born with. The truth that we ultimately have no idea who, rather than what, is growing inside my belly. Who will this person be? What kind of person will we become parents to? How will they change our lives and who we are? This is a wondrous and terrifying concept, one that renders us both hopeless and humble. I like the idea of forcing as few gender stereotypes on my child as possible. But no matter how progressive I may hope to be, I understand the desire to know the gender of our fetus. It feels like the first real opportunity to glimpse who they might be. As my body changes in bizarre and unfamiliar ways, it's comforting to obtain any information that might make what's coming feel more real," she said. Yeah, this being so progressive that you move beyond reality is too progressive, you know. You don't want to have a mind that is so open that your brains fall out. Okay? There are two genders. You might want to say there's three if your child is actually born as a hermaphrodite. Okay, there's three. Then there's male, female, and hermaphroditic. But other than that, no. There, you know, and those people who are hermaphrodites are very, very rare. So, Emily, you may want to stop believing the garbage that you're hearing in the media and actually think. What am I asking? I mean, asking a pretty girl to think. It's interestingly enough, Emily would go on to claim she's actually imagined herself having a girl. Oh, look, there you go, contradicting yourself. Now, she does do this. She does actually point out that there are differences between men and women. So she's very, very confused. I don't know why she, not read a biology text maybe and figure this out. She explains it occurs to me that as a younger person, I'd almost automatically imagine myself having a daughter. She goes on to describe she imagined her own daughter playing with an American Girl doll similar to how she did. And if it's a boy, what do? You kill it with fire, right? Kill it with fire. Okay, so Emily even details a discussion she has with her husband. To be perfectly honest, I tell my husband over dinner, I'm not sure that I even know that I want a girl. I guess I just never really thought about having a boy before, right? Why would you want to have a boy when white men are abusive? Notice how white men are abusive and traumatic to you, but you didn't go find a non white man to have a baby with. What does that say about you? I mean, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong, but what does that really say about you? You know, actions speak louder than words. So even though you claim that white men are all evil and traumatic and traumatizing, and she does claim she was sexually assaulted, and I believe it was by a white man that she claims she was sexually assaulted. But that's not race specific. That is not race specific at all. I've talked about this in previous videos and given examples. And here's another example I'm going to give now. I have a friend who is from South Africa. She tells me about how the black people there have ingrained in their culture this sort of um, assault by unwelcome penetration. So much so that they do it to their children. They do this to their children. So that's their culture there in South Africa. So I mean, you tell me. This when I talked about my nasty woman teaches us about acceptance and hate video. That video, I go into the evolution of humanity and how white people have only evolved within the last 10,000 years. So before that, this never happened, right? This sort of assault never happened. This sort of intimate assault never happened. Yeah, okay. White people invented it, sure. She would go on to discuss how women and men are different from each other biologically. Yes, it's going to make it very difficult for you to raise your child as non-gendered. My husband likes to say that we're pregnant. I tell him that while the sentiment is sweet, it's not entirely true. I resent that his entire family's DNA is inside me, but that my DNA is not inside of him, she writes. So this is where she goes off the deep end a little bit. She continues, it just seems unfair. I say, and we both laugh. It's kind of a joke, but just like the remark we make about our child's gender, there is truth behind it. Yeah, but why would you, I mean, why would you resent your husband for that? And then she talks about pregnancy and how she feels about it, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't have her husband doesn't have any physical symptoms of pregnancy. She would also discuss the differences between boys and girls later in the article. Everyone has their opinions, and then her friends chime in. Girls are this way, boys are that way. When you get pregnant, you do this and that, so on and so forth. Emily then clearly writes, I don't necessarily fault anyone for their generalizations. A lot of our life experiences are gendered. and it would be dishonest to try and deny the reality of many of them. Okay, so she kind of pulls that back where she was saying that, gender is something that you can't force on a child. They have to decide what they are. And believe me, your child's going to decide right away. Your child will decide within the first week what gender it is. Okay, so she does add the caveat. But I don't like that we force gender-based preconceptions onto people, let alone babies. I want to be a parent who allows my child to show themselves to me. And yet I realize that while I may hope my child can determine their own place in the world, they will no matter what be faced with the undeniable constraints and constructions of gender before they can speak or hell even be born. Yeah, so there are constraints by gender. And this whole belief, I talk about this all the time, this whole belief that men and women should not have a specific position in a culture is ridiculous. I was thinking recently the only reason we can allow women to go to work outside of the home these days in large numbers and full-time jobs and more than full-time jobs is because of inventions of men. Dishwashers, laundry machines, these inventions that have made housework easier to do, faster to do, have allowed women the opportunity to go out and earn a living on their own. One of the things that has allowed this to happen. Most of the work throughout human history has been backbreaking labor. Who is more equipped for that? Who is better equipped for that sort of labor? Men are better equipped for physical work than women are. Women are better suited for raising children. It's just biology, There are some women who are terrible mothers. Believe me, I had one. There are some men who are weak. Believe me, I am one. So, yeah, it's not cut and dry. It's not like every woman is better at raising children than every man, and every man is better at doing physical labor than every woman. But there's not much overlap. In the article, Emily would also explain that she's scared of having a son. Of course she is. Kill it with fire. She explains, I've known far too many white men who move through the world unaware of their privilege, and I've been traumatized by many of my experiences with them. Yeah, if by unaware of their privilege you mean their privilege doesn't exist in their minds because it doesn't actually exist in the real world, then you would be correct. I do not have any privilege, and I know that privilege is defined as if there were a person who was not white, who was born and raised in my exact same circumstances, at least exact same for everything that is important and matters in the world, their lives would be worse off than mine. Let's assume that is the case. How could you ever prove that? How could you ever prove that a person who had the exact same life in every way that matters as mine, except they were not white, has worse outcomes in the end? How could you ever actually prove that? You would have to be able to go look through someone's life and see all of the environment that went into raising them. And you can't do that. That's impossible. So this is just a made-up idea. Just this, oh look, this is what it means. That's just made up. You can't prove that. There's no evidence to support that idea. And you can never have evidence to support that idea. Not in any meaningful way. What privilege do I have? Gee, let me see. Well, Barack Obama was president, and he says he's black, so I'm going to go down the route of him having more privilege than I have. And I'm white, and I don't have as much privilege as he does, so I'm going to have to say that privilege is a myth. All right, moving on. At least when you're talking about race, privilege is a myth in this country, in the United States. And boys, too, it's shocking to realize how early young boys gain a sense of entitlement to girls' bodies and to the world in general. Okay, will somebody explain to me how I have entitlement to a woman's body? Because I'm still waiting to get that feeling. I've never felt like I had entitlement to a woman's body. I've never felt like I had entitlement to the world in general. I felt quite the opposite, because I've been told all my life that I'm evil because I'm male and I'm white. Huh. So I don't know where you're getting that idea from, but then we've already proven that you're not an intelligent person. I'm not scared of raising a bad guy, as many of the men I've known who abuse their power do so unintentionally. Oh, okay. Do you have any examples of this happening? But I'm terrified of inadvertently cultivating the carelessness and lack of awareness that are so convenient for men, she elaborated. I am not careless or unaware. In fact, I would say that it's actually women who fit that mold better than men do. She then questioned, it feels much more daunting to create an understanding of privilege in a child than to teach simply black and white morality. How do I raise a child who learns to like themselves? In this case, you'd be saying himself because you're talking about a boy, while also teaching them about their position of power in the world. Men don't actually have any power in the Western world anymore. You've taken it away. Women have taken away all of men's power. So you don't have to worry about that. Emily is no stranger to making inflammatory comments and statements. Back in 2019, the actress posed nude and took issue with 25 old white men who voted to ban abortion in Alabama, even in cases of incest and rape. Emily wrote in her Instagram post, these men in power are imposing their wills onto the bodies of women in order to uphold the patriarchy and perpetuate the industrial prison complex by preventing women of low economic opportunity the right to choose not to reproduce. The states trying to ban abortion are the states that have the highest proportions of black women living there. This is about class and race and is a direct attack on the fundamental human rights women in the U.S. deserve and are protected by under Roe v. Wade. Our bodies, our choice, she added. So I'm going to go out on a limb and speak for these men who don't have a voice in this article. I don't necessarily agree with them, right? I'm just going to use the argument that I've heard from the people in these positions who are saying, yeah, abortion should be illegal even in cases of rape and incest. These people believe that a baby, an unborn baby, is a full-fledged human being, and aborting it is the same as murder. And murder is a sin, a mortal sin, and if you do that, you will go to hell. Okay? It's not about you being a woman and them wanting to take away your right to do things, and perpetuating the patriarchy has nothing to do with any of that. Because there is no patriarchy. It has to do with their fundamental beliefs and them wanting to protect you from eternal damnation. Okay? They're not considering your body. They are considering the child, the child's body. If you are incested, or if you are sexually assaulted and you have a child because of that, you can become pregnant because of that. That is terrible and it is tragic. And these people believe that you should carry that child to term, and then if you do not want to have the child, you can put it up for adoption. These are the things that I've heard them saying. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it has nothing to do with what she is saying. She is saying the wrong thing. She is saying it's because they want to control women. It's not about that. Wow. These people, I wish they would actually do some research instead of just assume that everybody's out to get them. Now, nobody even knows, well, people do, but people don't even know the argument that convinced Roe v. Wade to happen. The argument goes like this. There was a famous singer who was kidnapped, and then he was connected to another human being, and he had to stay connected to that human being for like kidney dialysis or something for 9 months, and then they would be able to go their separate ways. And then the question was posed, now if you were that famous singer, wouldn't you have every right in the world to disconnect yourself as soon as you found out you were connected to this other person and then walk away? And people agreed, said yes, that should be allowed, that should be moral, the moral thing to do. But the reality is, if you are kidnapped and then connected to a human being against your will, and you have to stay with that human being, connected to that human being for 9 months, and if you disconnect yourself, you will murder that other person, you will kill that other person. Do you have the right to do that? Do you have the right to murder somebody? No matter how you got into that situation, if you got there willingly or if you got there in a manner that is against your will, do you have the right to actually murder that other person? And we're not even talking about a fetus here or an embryo. So the question is, do you have the right to murder somebody at that point? I'm not saying that I agree with any of this. I'm just telling you what what the facts are. That's the argument that convinced Roe v. Wade to be passed. Emily, I'm sure that if you knew that you were going to be giving birth to a boy, you would want to abort it, just because it's a boy. And I don't know how it is you manage to get a man interested in you with these psychotic beliefs, these just over-the-top, insane points of view that you have. And you're going to be a terrible mother, no matter how you cut it. You're going to be terrible parents, both of you. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next time.